Your life as the child of a meth addict. You're 5 years old, standing in the kitchen doorway in your socks, watching your mom reorganize a spice cabinet at 4 a.m. She's humming something you don't recognize, moving fast, putting the black pepper next to the salt, and then moving it back again. The whole counter is covered. There are spices you didn't even know you owned. You don't have a word for what you're watching. So you just stand there until she notices you. And then she smiles the biggest smile you've ever seen and asks if you want hot chocolate. You say yes. You go back to bed with a warm mug and the sound of cabinets opening and closing down the hall. And you don't think anything of it because you're 5 and this is just what nights look like. By 2nd grade, you've developed a system. You check the kitchen first when you get home from school. If the dishes are done and the counters are wiped, it's a good day. If there's a half-finished project on the table, some beaded bracelet or a scrapbook with photos cut out but not yet glued down, you go straight to your room and stay there. You've also learned not to move things around when you clean up. Once you found a small glass pipe tucked behind the dish soap and put it in the junk drawer without knowing what it was. And the way your mom looked when she couldn't find it later was something you never wanted to see again. School is a different world entirely. Kids in your class complain about bedtimes and screen limits and not getting the right color of Gatorade in their lunch. You sit there and nod and you don't say anything because there's nothing to say that wouldn't end the conversation permanently. Your bedtime is whenever you fall asleep. Dinner is whatever's in the cabinet, which is sometimes real food and sometimes crackers and a can of soup you heat up yourself because you figured out the stove at the age of 6. You know not to mention this to anyone because the one time you did, the kid told his mom and his mom called the school, and then there was a meeting with a woman who had a lanyard and a clipboard, and your mom cried in a parking lot afterward and told you that you can't say things like that to people. You were 7. You never said anything again. The thing nobody tells you about living with an addict is that the good stretches are almost harder than the bad ones. When she's clean, she's the best person you know. She sits with you at the kitchen table and actually helps with your homework instead of just signing a planner. She takes you to the park and pushes you on the swings past the point where you need pushing because you're both laughing and neither of you wants to stop. She makes this pasta with butter and garlic that you would eat every night for the rest of your life if someone let you. On those days, you let yourself believe it's going to stay this way. You ask about getting a dog. She says maybe, and maybe feels close enough to yes that you spend 3 days looking up dog breeds on the school computer during lunch. Then something shifts, and you learn to stop asking about the dog. You can't always pinpoint when it starts. You just notice the signs the way you'd notice a change in the weather.
The energy comes first. The fast talking, the big plans, the way she starts cleaning the bathroom at midnight with a conviction that makes it feel like the most important thing anyone has ever done. Then the not sleeping, which you know because you can hear her moving around at 2 a.m. Then 3, then 4. Then the crash. The crash has its own specific kind of quiet, a silence with weight behind it, and it means you're making your own lunch and getting yourself to the bus stop and stopping by her room in the afternoon to push the door open a few inches and watch her chest rise. You are 8 years old and this is just part of the routine. The relatives rotate though. An aunt who drives 4 hours and brings you back to her house, where dinner is at 6 every night, exactly 6. The bathroom always has a full roll of toilet paper, which sounds like a small thing until you spend enough time rationing the end of a roll. A grandmother who tucks grocery store gift cards into your birthday envelopes and whispers to call her if you ever need anything. And the way she says it makes clear she's not talking about birthday money. A neighbor named Carol who has a spare key and a dog named Biscuit and a guest room with a nightlight shaped like a moon. You spend 11 nights at Carol's house in 2nd grade. You keep the light on every night. You don't tell her why. But then you hit middle school. Things start getting harder to manage. You're sitting in science class when your phone buzzes in your pocket. It's a text from a number you don't recognize and it's a screenshot. And it takes you a second to realize you're looking at your own front door. Someone posted it it in a group chat with a caption asking if that's where the meth lady lives. Your ear starts ringing. Teacher is still talking about the water cycle and drawing diagrams on the board. The kid next to you is copying notes and everything in the room is completely normal except for the way your hands have gone cold. And the screenshot is still sitting there on your screen. You put your phone face down on the desk. You copy the notes. You don't tell anyone. You start noticing things you didn't before. The way some of the other parents look at your mom during a pickup. A quick glance and then away. Like they've clocked something and filed it. The way one of your friends stopped inviting you over after his older brother said something at dinner that made the whole table go quiet. You don't know exactly what was said. You can guess. You start taking the long way home from the bus stop, past the vacant lot and the gas station. Anywhere that adds 10 minutes and means you don't have to walk past the house where people know. You start pulling shirts out of the laundry pile in the morning instead of your dresser because at some point the dresser stopped getting refilled. And one morning, a small burnt piece of foil falls out from between two shirts and lands on the floor, and you just stare at it for a second before kicking it under the bed and going to school. By the time you're 14, the house has changed in ways that are hard to explain to someone who hasn't seen it happen slowly. It doesn't go from clean to destroyed overnight. It goes in stages, like water damage. You only notice how bad it got when you look at it from the outside. A friend from your old school comes to pick you up one Saturday, and you watch her eyes move across the living room when you open the door, and you see it the way she sees it. The dishes piled in the sink, the garbage bags that didn't make it outside, the curtains that have been half pulled off the rod for so long you stop seeing them. You grab your jacket and pull the door shut behind you before she can see the rest. You spend the whole afternoon not being able to look her in the eye. She never brings it up. You never invite anyone over again. Your mom has friends who come by at odd hours. Learn their names the way you learn the names of weather patterns. Not because you want to, but because they keep coming back. There's a guy named Darren who sits at the kitchen table and talks too loud and laughs at things that aren't funny. There's a woman with a bleached ponytail who you've never heard say a full sentence, but who always seems to be there when you wake up at 3 a.m. to get a glass of water. You learn to read the cars in the driveway before you open the front door. The same way you learn to read the kitchen in 2nd grade. A certain rusted Civic means you keep your head down and go straight to your room. 2 cars means don't come out until morning. One night you come home from a friend's house at 9 o'clock and Darren is sitting on the couch and your mom is nowhere in the apartment. He tells you she just stepped out. Go to your room and you lock the door, which is something you started doing earlier that year, and you sit on your bed and wait. She comes back 2 hours later, and when she opens your door, she has that look. The one where her eyes aren't quite tracking right, and her jaws keeps moving slightly even when she isn't talking. She asks how your night was. You say fine. She stands at the doorway for a second like she's trying to remember something, and then she goes to her room. You listen to the sound of her TV turning on, and you stare at the ceiling and you think about Carol's guest room and the nightlight shaped like a moon. The summer before high school is when you find out what it actually is. Not from her. She never tells you directly. You find out the way you find out most things. Through a conversation you weren't supposed to hear. Aunt is on the phone in the backyard. She doesn't know you're sitting on the other side of the screen door. You hear her say the word meth, your mom's name, and then something about it getting worse. You don't move. You just sit there on the other side of the door with your back against the wall while your aunt finishes the call. And then you get up and go inside and pour yourself a glass of water and act like you didn't hear anything. You already knew, just didn't have the word for it until now. High school is a performance you get very good at. You learn which teachers ask too many questions and which ones just mark you present and move on. You learn how to do your homework in the library before school because the apartment in the morning is not always a place where homework gets done. You join a club you don't care about just to have somewhere to be until 5 o'clock. Your grades are fine because school is the one place where the rules are clear and the same every day and nothing moves around on you without warning. You are at 15 and you are good at performing normal, and this is not a skill anyone should have to develop at 15, but here you are. But then comes a night in October of your sophomore year that you don't talk about for a long time. Your mom has been on a bad stretch, the longest one yet. The apartment has gotten to the point where you've started keeping your important things in your backpack at all times. Your phone charger, the $20 your grandmother sent, a change of clothes, Darren has been around every day for 2 weeks. Come home from school on a Thursday. There's a man you've never seen before sitting in the living room. He's older, maybe 50, and he looks at you the way people look at things they're trying to figure out the value of. Your mom introduces him like he's an old friend, but she can't quite remember his last name. You say hi and go to your room and press your dresser in front of the door, which is something you've never done before. And you sit there until you hear the front door close 3 hours later. The next morning, you call your grandmother from the school bathroom and tell her you need to come stay with her for a while. She's okay without asking why, which tells you she already knows. You stay with your grandmother for 6 weeks. It is the longest 6 weeks of your life in both directions. The most boring and the most peaceful. She watches the evening news at 6 and makes decaf after dinner and goes to bed at 9:30. The house smells like dish soap and the same floral air freshener she's had for as long as you can remember. You sleep 8 hours at night, which is something you haven't done in years. Breakfast at an actual table, you do your homework in actual silence. You feel guilty about every minute of it, which is its own specific kind of exhausting. You go back because she's your mom, and because you can't explain to yourself why staying away feels like losing something even when going back feels like losing something too. She's clean when you get home. The apartment is clean, there are groceries in the refrigerator, and a new plant on the windowsill, and she hugs you in the doorway for a long time without saying anything. You let yourself believe it again. You've done this enough times to know you're going to do it again. Let yourself believe it and then learn you shouldn't have. And you do it anyway, because the alternative is deciding it's over. You're not ready to do that yet. You graduate high school on a Thursday in June. Your mom is there, sitting 3 rows back in a yellow dress. She cheers when they call your name, loud enough that people turn around. After the ceremony, she takes a picture of you in your cap and gown in the parking lot. She's crying a little, and she looks so much like the person who pushed you on the swings that it physically hurts to look at her. You pick a college 2 states away. She helps you pack, and she puts snacks in the box with your bed sheets like you're going to need goldfish crackers in college, and you don't say anything. Just let her do it. The drive to drop you off is 4 hours, and she talks the whole way about nothing in particular. And you watch the distance grow between you, the apartment. And you feel something you don't have a clean word for. Somewhere between relief and grief, like both things are true at the same time. There's no way to feel one without the other. Calls come less often after the first semester. Not because you stop caring, but because every call has a shape you recognize after a while. She'll be good for the first few minutes, and then something will shift in her voice. The pitch will change slightly, and you'll know. And then you have to decide whether to say something or just stay on the line and let her talk. You usually just stay on the line. You're 19 years old and you're good at staying on the line, and you hate that you're good at it. The call you've been waiting for without knowing you were waiting for it comes on a Tuesday night in your junior year. It's your aunt, not your mom, which is how you know it's serious before she says anything. Your mom is in the hospital, not an overdose. Your aunt says quickly, like that's the important part, a breakdown of some kind. They're not sure yet. You drive 6 hours through the night and you get there at 4 a.m. And she's in a bed in a room with pale green walls, and she looks smaller than you've ever seen her look. She doesn't ask about school or your apartment or whether you've been eating. She just looks at you for a long time and says, "I'm sorry." You tell her it's okay. You're not sure if that's true, but you say anyway, and you sit next to her bed until the sun comes up. You stay for 4 days. On the 3rd day, she asks if you'll come back home after you graduate. You tell her you don't know yet. She nods like she expected that answer. On the 4th day, you hug her in the hospital room, and she holds on a little longer than usual. And you let her. And then you get in your car and drive back. And you cry for about an hour on the highway. And then you turn the radio up and you keep going. You're 24 now. You live in a city where nobody knew you growing up. You have a job and an apartment where the dishes are always done and the counters are always wiped. You call her on Sundays when you can. Sometimes the call is fine, and sometimes you can hear it in her voice. And on those nights, you get off the phone and you sit with it for a while, and then you go to bed. One Saturday morning, you're in the grocery store, grabbing things for the week. Nothing special, eggs, and bread and coffee. You turn down the cleaning aisle and the smell hits you before you even register what it is. Something chemical and sharp underneath the artificial lemon on the floor cleaner. And for a second, you're 10 years old, standing in a doorway, watching your mom scrub a bathtub at 2 a.m. with that particular focused energy that had nothing to do with the bathtub being dirty. You stand there in the aisle for a second with a bottle of dish soap in your hand, and then you put it in the cart and keep moving. You get in line behind a woman with a little boy who's maybe 6 or 7. He's holding a cart with both hands and spinning himself around on it, just killing time the way kids do. And his mom is looking at her phone with that specific blank concentration. That means she's somewhere else entirely. The boy catches you looking and gives you this big goofy grin, and you smile back and the line moves forward. And that's it. That's the whole thing. But you sit in your car in the parking lot for a few minutes afterward, and you don't totally know why. You think about calling her on the drive home. You don't. You get back to your apartment and you put the groceries away and you stand at the kitchen counter eating an apple and looking out the window at the street below. The ordinary Sunday afternoon of it. People walking dogs, a kid on a bike, someone struggling with a stroller on the curb. Your apartment is quiet in a way that took you a long time to stop feeling guilty about. The dishes are done. The counters are wiped. There's nothing on the table that isn't supposed to be there. You finish the apple and throw the core away and go sit on the couch and turn something on. And after a while, you stop thinking about it and the afternoon goes on.